One thing that I really love about the Gospel of Mark is how the disciples behave. The author of Mark frequently portrays them as knuckleheads who often just don't get it. The pattern is set early in the Gospel and goes all the way through, and even though they make up Jesus' most private inner circle, they're usually the ones that are the last to figure things out. So in last week's Gospel, Jesus spoke about suffering and death, and Peter rebukes Jesus. And Jesus gives it right back and says, "Get behind me, Satan." Meaning, you really don't get it, do you? So in today's story, when Jesus begins to speak about similar things, disciples are afraid to speak up. They're often fearful, especially of some of the hard things Jesus is teaching. And I kind of hope, since Mark's gospel was the first to be written, that this is close to a true representation of them. The later gospels probably tried to polish the disciples' image up a bit. Gives us all hope, right? This entire section of Mark's gospel, from about the 8th chapter to the 10th, we're in the middle of the 9th here today, it begins and ends with accounts of blind people being given sight. So the image of going from blindness to sight is a big clue. Mark has a habit of making a story sandwiched in between another story, just to make us confused. So this blindness to sight is a big clue as to what he's trying to tell us. And as the blind man is gradually restored his sight, the disciples who are blind to Jesus' mission and identity are also given sight, albeit gradually. So Jesus and his disciples, in the story we just read, have traveled to Capernaum. He is speaking with them about suffering and about weakness. He speaks about his being betrayed and even being killed. And the disciples are shaken by this. They're afraid. They've seen the big crowds following Jesus, gathering to hear him speak, the great things he's done, the inspirational message he's been speaking about. They gave up everything, their families, their livelihoods, to follow him. And they had thought this was the long-awaited Messiah who was going to conquer their enemies and lead them out of the oppression they've been suffering. They thought they were headed for greatness. So this kind of talk was disturbing. So as we're listening to these stories, Jesus is trying to teach a lesson of downward mobility. Just the phrase goes against our and perhaps the disciples' human nature, doesn't it? Downward mobility. So perhaps the first part of this downward journey he's speaking about is admitting our fears. It doesn't make them go away, but it helps us let go of their control. But instead of admitting their fears in today's gospel, the disciples decide to distract themselves by discussing who is the greatest. But Jesus is not teaching the disciples how to climb the ladder of success. He tells them he's making a journey of descent. His definition, Jesus' definition of success and greatness, is the opposite of what the disciples thought. For Jesus, it's a success that looks more like failure and powerlessness. And the model of this letting go, being dependent, realizing you can't control everything or be the greatest at everything, and our need to rely on others, Jesus shows in the example of a child. He uses a child to show the disciples how they should be. Because children, especially at this time, the culture of the time, were the epitome of vulnerability and powerlessness. Seth Haynes, he's an author of the book Waking Up. He recently tweeted, "Having the faith of a child is simply admitting you're afraid of the dark." So Jesus is trying to warn the disciples that his ministry will look like a failure when he is betrayed, deserted, and killed. But it is through what seems like failure that resurrection can happen. But we don't like to fail. We prefer to focus on upward mobility, achieving, earning more. We want to do well. And I think that's part of our nature. But Jesus teaches about a different way that intentionally moves downward rather than upward. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not saying we shouldn't always try to do our best, to be the best we can be at our work, our vocation, even our hobbies. But being the best can't be the goal. It can't be what drives us. Doing our best in the service of something greater than ourselves, that's good powerlessness. Being held up by God instead of holding ourselves up. Realizing we are not in control of everything. That's the success that Jesus is talking about. Of course, there's also bad powerlessness, which looks more like stuckness or whatever attitude, and where the letting go is more like giving up. The good news is that one of the lessons that the author of Mark is trying to get across is that it's okay when we have to let go, when we don't fully understand. Remember, the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is certainty. Today's gospel ends with Jesus embracing a child, the symbol of vulnerability, and not knowing, not fully understanding. So we need to take a lesson from the disciples, and we need not fear our questions, our misunderstanding, our doubts, our confusion, our not knowing, or even our being a knucklehead, in the presence of the one who holds us and whose love casts out all fear.
Learning to sit but not knowing, but I don't see where it's going. I pull my heels and start slowing. I'm learning to sit without knowing. I'm learning to live with the what's next. What if in my best guess? The kind of when it's a process. I'm learning to live with what's next. Here's a clear space I have chosen, where the denseness of this world opens, where there's something holding steady and true, regardless of me or you. I'm learning to live with the high stakes, befriending my mistakes, lay my hand where my heart aches. I'm learning to live with high stakes. Here's a clear space I have chosen, where the denseness of this world opens, time. Stop feeling I'm always a day behind. I'm learning to live with what takes time.